It was the first snow of December. New York looked beautiful, white rooftops, glowing windows, and streets alive with laughter. But for Ryan, the world had gone quiet. He sat by the same cafe window he'd visited every day for 2 years, a white rose resting on the table beside his untouched coffee. Every morning he waited, even though he knew she might never come back. Her name was Emma, the girl who once promised forever, and then forgot him. They met 3 years ago in this very cafe. She was sketching snowflakes on napkins while he struggled to write a novel he never finished. She smiled at his messy handwriting and said, "Maybe you should write about me instead." He did. Every page after that was hers. But life doesn't always follow a perfect script. One rainy night everything changed. Car crash, screeching tires, shattered glass. Ryan survived. Emma didn't, or at least not the Emma he knew. When she woke up in the hospital, she didn't remember him. Not their first kiss under the city lights, not their last dance on her birthday, not even his name. Her mind was a clean page, and he was no longer written on it. The doctors said her memory loss was rare, caused by trauma. She could walk, talk, live, but her heart had forgotten the love that once defined her. Still, Ryan refused to leave. He visited her every day with her favorite white rose, the one she used to call the color of peace. She would smile politely, thank him, and ask his name again. Every time he would say, "Ryan." Every time she would reply, "Nice to meet you, Ryan." And every time he would break a little more inside. One day, as snow fell gently outside, Emma walked into the cafe again, this time alone. Her scarf was red, just like the one he had given her on their first Christmas together. For a moment, he dared to believe she remembered. She ordered her coffee, black, 2 sugars, the same way she always had. Then she looked around, her eyes meeting his. Something flickered, a spark of recognition. She tilted her head slightly. "Do I know you?" He smiled, though his voice trembled. "Not yet," he said softly. "But maybe someday again." She smiled back, the kind of smile that once melted winter itself. And just like that she walked away, leaving footprints in the snow, and a heart still waiting to be remembered. That night, Ryan returned home and placed another white rose in the glass vase beside her old photograph. He whispered, "Even if you forget me, I'll remember enough for both of us." Outside, snow kept falling, erasing footprints but never love. The morning arrived quietly, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Snow blanketed the streets of New York, soft and white, reflecting the dim golden glow of the streetlights. Ryan stepped into the cafe, the wooden door creaking gently behind him. He felt the familiar chill that always accompanied the first snow of the season, but the warmth of the cafe welcomed him like a fragile memory. On the table, waiting for her as always, was a single white rose. Its petals glistened with dew, fragile yet steadfast, and he traced its outline with his fingertips as if remembering a feeling that only he could feel. Every morning for 2 years he had waited. Every day he had placed a white rose on the table, just in case she came back. Emma, the girl who had once promised forever. The girl who had laughed in the sunlight and loved him with a depth that left him breathless. Now she didn't remember him. Not the laughter, not the whispered secrets in the quiet of the night, not the way his heart had belonged to her completely. He took a deep breath, letting the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingle with the winter air. He opened his notebook, the edges worn, the pages filled with fragments of their story. Memories he had written for himself, pieces of a love that refused to die even when it was forgotten. He began to write silently. Sometimes the heart remembers what the mind forgets. And sometimes, even in the coldest winter, love waits quietly for its spring. Hours passed in stillness. The cafe filled with the chatter of strangers, the clinking of coffee cups, the soft hum of music in the background. Ryan didn't notice. He only noticed the empty chair across from him, the one she had once sat in, and the ghost of her presence that lingered like perfume in the air. His mind drifted back to their first meeting, The first time he had seen her sketching the snowflakes on a napkin with a pencil too delicate to hold her imagination. She had looked up and smiled at him, a smile that made time pause. "Maybe you should write about me instead," she had said softly. And he had. Every word, every line, every story afterward belonged to her. The door opened, and the cold wind swept into the café, carrying with it the sound of boots crunching against the snow. Ryan's heart leapt, though he barely allowed himself to hope. He looked up, and for a moment he thought it was her. But it was only a stranger, a woman with a crimson scarf wrapped around her neck, her cheeks pink from the cold. Disappointment settled like a heavy weight on his chest. He returned to the white rose, tracing its petals, memorizing its perfection. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "Maybe she'll never come back. Maybe she's gone forever from this world, from me." Yet he didn't leave. He never left. He would wait until the last breath of winter, until the snow melted, until the roses wilted. He would wait for her. Hours later, as the afternoon sunlight struggled to pierce through the gray clouds, the door opened again. This time it was her. Her figure was familiar, yet unfamiliar, a paradox that tore at his heart. Her hair fell softly around her face, catching the sunlight in gentle waves. Her eyes scanned the café, unsure, searching. And then they landed on him. He held his breath. Her gaze lingered, soft, uncertain. She didn't smile at first. She didn't speak. She simply looked. And in that moment, he felt the years of waiting, of heartbreak, of hope, condense into a single heartbeat. "Hi," he said softly, his voice trembling. She blinked, as if waking from a dream. "Hi," she replied. Her voice was the same, yet distant. Ryan's chest tightened. He wanted to say so much, to tell her he loved her still, that he had waited every day for her, that the world had been empty without her. But the words lodged in his throat. She moved toward the table, her hands brushing against the white rose. "You forgot your rose again," she said softly, a hint of amusement in her voice. Ryan's heart jumped. That subtle tone, the inflection, the way she spoke. It was familiar in a way that made his soul ache. I guess I always forget them until I see you," he murmured. Her eyes met his, searching. I don't understand," she said quietly. "Why do you keep giving me this flower?" He smiled faintly, feeling a tear prick at the corner of his eye. "Because it reminds you of peace. 'Cause it reminds me of you. Because sometimes, even if you forget, love doesn't." She looked down at the rose, tracing the petals with her fingers. "Peace," she whispered. I don't know why, but it feels familiar. Warm. Safe." Ryan nodded, unable to speak. He simply watched her, memorizing every detail, every curve of her smile, every fleeting expression of recognition that danced across her face. For the first time in months, he felt a fragile hope stirring in his chest. They sat together, words flowing slowly, carefully, like tentative brushstrokes painting an unfinished memory. They spoke of trivial things, the weather, the new café menu, the snow outside. Yet beneath the surface a deeper conversation unfolded. Every laugh, every glance, every pause carried a weight of unspoken history. Even though she didn't remember him fully, something inside her recognized him, a familiarity that transcended memory. The afternoon passed, shadows lengthened, and the café grew quieter. Ryan wanted to tell her everything, to pour out his heart, to make her remember. But he knew that memory could not be forced. Instead, he let the silence speak, letting their presence together bridge the gap between what was forgotten and what could be felt. As evening approached, Emma stood up to leave. Ryan's heart constricted. He wanted to hold her, to beg her to stay, to keep her in this fragile moment forever. But he let her go. "It was nice meeting you," she said softly, her smile hesitant yet warm. Ryan's lips curved into a faint smile. "You remember my name," he whispered. She blinked, uncertainty in her gaze. "I do, don't I?" And for a fleeting moment, her eyes met his with a depth that spoke of recognition beyond reason, of memories buried deep in her soul. She placed the white rose back on the table. "Maybe it's your turn to keep it," she said softly, her voice lingering like a melody. Ryan watched her walk away, the snow swirling around her, the red scarf fluttering in the winter wind. He touched the rose gently, feeling the weight of love, of hope, of everything they had shared and lost. That night, he sat by the window, snow falling silently outside, and wrote in his notebook. "She forgot my name, but her soul remembered my silence. And sometimes that is enough." The city slept under a blanket of white, unaware of the quiet miracle unfolding in a small café. Love had not returned fully. Memory had not yet awakened. But something deeper, a connection too strong to be erased, had begun to bloom again. Ryan placed the notebook beside the white rose, whispering into the night, "I'll wait. I'll wait for you always. Even if it takes 1,000 winters, even if it takes 1,000 lifetimes, I'll wait." And outside, the snow continued to fall, gentle and unending, carrying the promise of a love that refused to be forgotten. The night was quiet, the city wrapped in a blanket of snow and silence. Emma lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, the soft hum of the heater filling the room. Sleep had been elusive lately. Every night, strange dreams visited her, dreams that felt like fragments of a life she didn't remember living. In her dream, she was walking down a familiar street, the cobblestones wet from rain, the smell of coffee in the air, the sound of a distant piano playing a gentle melody. And there he was, Ryan. Not as a stranger but as someone she knew. Someone whose eyes had held her entire world. He smiled at her in the dream, his gaze warm and steady, and for a fleeting moment, her chest remembered something. Memory. Feeling. A heartbeat that was hers and his, and yet somehow separate from them both. She woke with a start, heart racing. The sunlight had not yet reached her window, and the room was gray and quiet. She couldn't remember what the dream was exactly, only the feeling, a soft ache, a gentle warmth, like a melody half remembered. She whispered into the empty room, "Who are you?" And somehow it felt like the question wasn't for the world, but for him, whoever he was in her dreams. The next morning she returned to the café. The white rose was still on the table. Ryan was there as always, his notebook open, pen poised, eyes lost in thought. When she entered, something shifted in the air. He looked up, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of recognition that went beyond words. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Ryan smiled softly, as if sensing her thoughts. "You came back," he said, his voice calm, gentle. Emma hesitated. I don't know why," she whispered. "I felt like I should." Ryan's eyes softened. "That's enough for me." They sat together, talking quietly, words flowing slowly, naturally. But beneath the conversation, something else was happening. Her mind was stirring. Memories she didn't know she had. Emotions she couldn't place. Feelings that belonged to a past she couldn't remember. Every glance at him, every subtle smile, every gentle gesture felt strangely familiar. Like the echoes of a song she had forgotten but still hummed in her heart. Later that evening, Emma returned home, her mind restless. The dreams came again. Vivid, fragmented, hauntingly beautiful. She saw moments of laughter, of whispered promises, of hands intertwined under winter skies. But when she woke, the images slipped away like smoke, leaving only the ache, the feeling of love without memory. Days passed. Each morning she came to the café. Each morning Ryan was there. They shared small moments. A laugh over spilled sugar, a comment about the snow, a quiet observation about the people passing by. And slowly, imperceptibly, her heart began to remember. Not fully, not yet, but enough to feel warmth in his presence. Enough to feel that something important was missing when he wasn't around. One evening, as the café emptied and the last customers left, Ryan spoke softly. "Emma, sometimes love doesn't need memory. Sometimes the heart knows what the mind forgets." She looked at him, unsure. "What do you mean?" He reached across the table, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "I mean, even if you can't remember me, your soul remembers us. You're feeling it now, aren't you? She shivered slightly, not from the cold, but from the truth in his words. She felt it, a tug in her chest, a whisper in her mind, a warmth that belonged only to him. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I think I do, she whispered. The snow fell softly outside, covering the city in quiet white. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath, giving them a moment suspended between memory and feeling, between loss and hope. That night Emma dreamt again. This time the dream was clearer, brighter. She saw herself and Ryan walking hand in hand, laughing under falling snow, the city lights shimmering around them. She felt the warmth of his hand, the rhythm of his heartbeat, the certainty of a love that had never truly left. She woke with tears on her cheeks, a single thought echoing in her mind. I don't remember. But I feel you. I feel us. Ryan, across the city, sat by his window, holding the white rose she had left on the table that morning. He closed his eyes, whispering to the night. She's remembering, slowly, gently. Just like I knew she would. And for the first time in months, both of them felt it. The fragile, unspoken truth that love could not be erased, that even when memory fades, the heart remembers what is eternal. The snow continued to fall outside, soft, endless, and patient. A silent witness to the rekindling of something old, something fragile, something beautiful. A love story that had paused, but would never truly end. The city was quiet again, blanketed in early morning fog that softened every sharp edge, every sound. Ryan arrived at the café before sunrise, as he always did, carrying the small notebook he had filled with fragments of love and memory. The white rose sat patiently on the table, waiting, its petals untouched, as if it knew she would come. Emma entered just as the first golden light filtered through the windows, turning the café into a soft haven of warmth amid the chill outside. Something had changed. There was a flicker in her eyes, a subtle hesitance that spoke of recollection stirring beneath the surface. She looked at Ryan, and though she could not yet name the memories, she felt them. A quiet pull, a familiarity that was almost unbearable in its intensity. Ryan smiled faintly, noticing her gaze linger a little longer than before. "Good morning," he said softly. His voice careful, gentle, like a fragile whisper meant not to startle her. Emma nodded, the corners of her lips turning upward in a tentative smile. For a moment, silence wrapped them both, an unspoken acknowledgement that something had shifted, that the world had tilted slightly closer to the way it was meant to be. They sat together, the white rose between them, bridging the gap of lost time. Ryan spoke first, carefully, as if measuring every word. "Emma, sometimes memories are slow to return. They hide in shadows, in dreams, in quiet moments you don't even realize. But they come back, eventually." Emma looked down at the rose, tracing its petals with her fingertips, the sensation grounding her. I keep having these dreams," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Moments I can't explain. Things I shouldn't know and yet feel like I do. Like they belong to me." Ryan's heart ached with a quiet joy. He leaned closer, voice soft. "You're remembering little by little. Your heart remembers what your mind has forgotten." She raised her eyes to meet his, uncertainty and hope colliding in a single glance. "Sometimes I feel like I know you," she admitted. "Even when I don't. I feel like I've known you forever, and yet, I don't know why." Ryan reached across the table, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His touch tender, reverent. "That's because you have," he whispered. "We've always known each other. Somewhere deep inside your soul never let go. It just waited, patiently." The cafe around them faded into a blur, the soft murmur of conversation and clinking cups irrelevant. All that existed was this moment, this fragile bridge between the past and the present, between memory lost and love remembered. Days turned into weeks, and the subtle return of her memory continued. A laugh here, a sigh there, a fleeting recognition of a phrase, a song or a place, all reminders of the life she had shared with him. Ryan watched her quietly, never pushing, never forcing, letting the fragile tendrils of memory bloom in their own time. And slowly, she began to speak of things she didn't consciously remember, but felt deeply. "I had a dream last night," she said one afternoon, her voice soft, hesitant. Ryan leaned in, eyes wide. "Tell me." In a low, trembling voice, she described a scene. A street lined with trees, snow falling softly, a small café with glowing windows, and a man who waited patiently with a white rose in his hand. Ryan's heart skipped. Every detail was exact. Every gesture, every feeling was precise. "You dreamt of the café?" he asked gently. She nodded, tears brimming. "And felt like I knew him. Like I had always known him." Ryan swallowed, holding back his own tears. "That's because you have," he said softly. "That man was me." Her hand shook slightly as the words settled, the realization dawning slowly, painfully, beautifully. Memories began to flicker like old film reels. The first time she had laughed at his clumsy attempt to carry coffee, the warmth of his hand holding hers under a snowy sky, the way he had whispered promises that had felt eternal. All the fragments she had thought were dreams were pieces of reality, woven into the tapestry of her heart. Emma's voice was barely audible. "It's all coming back. I remember little pieces, faces, voices, feelings. But it's overwhelming. I don't know where to start." Ryan reached for her hand, holding it gently, firmly, grounding her. "Start with me," he said simply. "Start here now. We'll remember together, one piece at a time." Tears spilled down her cheeks, unbidden, cleansing as she nodded. The snow outside fell silently, covering the city in a quiet blanket of white, as if the world itself was holding its breath for them. In that quiet, fragile moment, the impossible became real. Emma remembered love without remembering everything else, the purest form of memory there is. The days that followed were slow, tentative, beautiful. Emma began visiting the café not just for the coffee or the routine, but to be near him. She laughed more freely, spoke more openly, and her eyes lingered longer on Ryan than they had before. The world seemed sharper, more vivid, more alive, because fragments of her memory had returned, and with them, the emotional resonance of their shared past. One evening, as the sunset painted the city in shades of amber and rose, Ryan and Emma walked together after closing the café. The snow crunched softly beneath their feet, and the air smelled of winter's purity. Emma reached for Ryan's hand, tentative at first, then firmly, and for the first time it felt right, complete. "I remember you," she whispered, voice trembling, eyes shining with tears. Ryan pulled her close, heart pounding, the ache of years dissolving in the warmth of her embrace. "I've never stopped remembering you," he said softly, holding her as if the world would crumble if he let go. And in the silence that followed, with snowflakes settling on their hair and shoulders, with the city watching quietly, they felt the truth of what had always been. Love can be lost, love can be forgotten, but love that is true always finds a way back. That night, Emma lay in bed, the events of the day washing over her. She had remembered the laughter, the warmth, the touch, the presence of Ryan. And for the first time since the accident, she felt whole, despite the missing pieces. Her dreams that night were gentle, comforting, vivid, and in them he was always there, holding her hand, smiling, waiting. Ryan, across the city, looked at the white rose she had left on his table that morning, tracing the petals with his fingers. He whispered into the quiet night, "She remembers, slowly, beautifully, and I'll be here until every last piece comes back to her." Outside, the snow continued to fall, soft and patient, blanketing the city in peace, in hope, in the quiet miracle of love remembered and reclaimed. A love that had been hidden in shadows was now stepping into the light, one memory at a time. The city was colder now, the days shorter, and the snow heavier, blanketing every street, every rooftop, every corner in silence. Ryan arrived at the café as usual, his breath visible in the crisp air, carrying the scent of winter and hope. The white rose sat patiently on the table, waiting for her, a quiet symbol of his unwavering devotion. Emma entered, her steps hesitant but determined. This morning was different. She had remembered more. Fragments of their past, pieces of laughter and whispered promises, the warmth of his hand, the softness of his voice. And yet, a shadow lingered over her heart. The accident had left marks not just on memory, but on the fragile trust between fate and reality. Ryan smiled softly, seeing the subtle tension in her eyes. "You're early today," he whispered, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the delicate moment. Emma nodded, placing her hands gently on the table. I've been thinking," she began, voice trembling. "About us, about everything we lost, about everything I've started to remember." Ryan reached for her hand, holding it firmly but gently. "Take your time," he said softly. "We'll rebuild it together, one memory at a time." They sat in silence for a while, letting the quiet of the cafe, the distant hum of music, and the soft falling snow outside fill the space between them. Every glance, every subtle gesture, carried meaning, unspoken yet profound. It was a fragile dance of rediscovery, a slow, tentative reconciliation of the past with the present. Emma spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I remember the first time we met here. You were fumbling with your notebook, spilling coffee everywhere." "No," I laughed. "I didn't know why, but it felt like I'd known you forever." Ryan smiled, a faint tear glistening in his eye. "I remember that day too. I knew the moment I saw you that my life had changed. And even now, after everything, it still feels the same." The days passed slowly, each one bringing small moments of clarity, fleeting recollections, and deepening emotions. Emma began to recall more vividly. Their first kiss under the streetlights, the late-night walks, the secrets shared in whispers, the warmth of winter afternoons spent together. Each memory brought joy, and yet, each also carried the weight of what had been lost, the ache of time stolen by fate. One evening, as the city streets glimmered under the glow of streetlights, Ryan and Emma walked together, hands entwined, their breaths mingling in the cold air. The snow fell softly, covering the world in quiet serenity, yet the tension between them was palpable. Emma stopped suddenly, her gaze distant, her fingers tightening around his. "Ryan, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice trembling. He looked at her, concern and love intertwined in his gaze. "What is it?" he asked gently. She took a deep breath, struggling to find the words. "There's a chance. A possibility that I might have to leave. My family, they're moving. I don't know when, I don't know where, but..." Her voice broke, tears brimming. Ryan's heart clenched, a quiet pain spreading through him. "You're leaving," he whispered, voice barely audible. "After all this. After everything we've found again." Emma shook her head, tears slipping freely now. "I don't want to. I love you, Ryan. I've remembered slowly, beautifully, and yet, life might take me away." He pulled her close, holding her tightly against his chest, feeling the warmth of her body, the rhythm of her heartbeat, the undeniable truth of their love. "We'll find a way," he said softly. "No matter where life takes you, no matter how far, I'll find you. Always." The days that followed were bittersweet. They spent every moment together, cherishing each smile, each laugh, each fleeting touch, knowing that time was fragile, precious, and slipping through their fingers like snow. Emma's memories returned fully. The love, the laughter, the stolen kisses, the quiet moments of understanding. And yet, the looming uncertainty cast a shadow over their happiness, a constant reminder that fate was not yet done with them. One snowy evening, as they walked along the quiet streets, Ryan stopped and turned to her, his eyes searching hers. "Emma," he whispered, "promise me something. No matter what happens, no matter the distance, no matter the time. Promise me you'll carry this love with you. Promise me you'll never forget the way we found each other again." Tears filled her eyes, and she nodded, pressing her forehead against his. "I promise," she whispered. "I will never forget. No matter where I go, no matter what happens, my heart remembers you." The snow swirled around them, silent and gentle, as if the city itself was blessing their vow. For that moment the world stopped. The past, the present, and the uncertain future merged into a single heartbeat, a single truth. That love, when true, survives all trials. That night, as Emma lay in bed, memories vivid and complete, she felt both joy and sorrow. Joy for the love rediscovered, the connection reclaimed, the warmth of Ryan's hand in hers. Sorrow for the uncertainty, for the possibility of separation, for the cruel twist of fate that might pull them apart once more. Ryan, far across the city, held the white rose she had left on the café table that morning, tracing the petals with gentle fingers. "I'll wait," he whispered to the night, voice firm, heart unwavering. "No matter how long, no matter how far, I'll wait for you. Always." And outside, snow continued to fall. Soft, patient, eternal. A silent witness to a love that had been lost and found, a love that was both fragile and unbreakable, a love that endured the harshest winter and the cruelest twists of fate. In the quiet, in the stillness, in the gentle whisper of falling snow, Ryan and Emma's hearts beat together once more. And though the future remained uncertain, one truth was undeniable. They had found each other again, and that was enough to carry them through the longest, coldest winter of their lives. Winter had reached its peak, the city transformed into a quiet wonderland of snow and light. Each street corner shimmered under the glow of streetlights reflecting off fresh snow, and every breath formed tiny clouds that floated in the crisp, cold air. Ryan arrived at the café before sunrise, as always, carrying the notebook that had chronicled their love, loss, and rediscovery. The white rose rested on the table, its petals pristine, a symbol of hope that had weathered every storm. Emma entered softly, the red scarf wrapped tightly around her neck, footsteps tentative but steady. Her eyes met Ryan's, and in that single gaze, everything unspoken was said. Joy, longing, relief, and an undeniable certainty that they belonged together. No words were needed at first. The air between them was heavy with emotion, memories, and the quiet understanding that the past and present had finally merged. Ryan smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "You're here," he whispered, voice full of awe, disbelief, and hope. Emma nodded, hands brushing against the white rose. "I promised I'd carry our love with me," she said softly. "No matter where I went, no matter what happened, my heart never let go." Ryan reached for her hand, holding it as if letting go was impossible. "I never stopped waiting," he replied, voice trembling. "Every day, every hour I remembered you. Even when you couldn't." The café around them seemed to fade, the sounds of other patrons, the clinking of cups, the music. All became distant, leaving only the fragile, perfect moment between them. They spoke quietly, softly, words flowing like a gentle river, each sentence carrying the weight of years lost and regained. Emma recounted memories returning with clarity. Their first winter together, the stolen kisses under the streetlights, quiet nights wrapped in blankets, dreams whispered into the darkness. Each memory brought warmth and tears, laughter and heartache, all mingled into a tapestry of love that had survived time, trauma, and separation. Outside, the snow continued to fall, soft, patient, unrelenting. It was as if the world itself was acknowledging the miracle unfolding. Two souls reunited against the odds. Days passed, each filled with small acts of intimacy, gestures that spoke louder than words. Emma would smile at Ryan across the table, her hand brushing his without thinking, a subtle reminder that memory and feeling were converging. Ryan would write in his notebook, leaving messages for her, sketches, reminders of their shared history, each one greeted with awe and tears as she recognized the love that had never faded. Then came the day of the last challenge, a reminder that life's trials were never truly over. Emma received news from her family. They were moving to another country. The timing was sudden, unavoidable, and it threatened to separate them once more. Her heart wrenched at the thought. Memories had returned, love had been found again, and now fate was testing them one final time. Ryan took her hands, looking deep into her eyes. "No distance, no time, no circumstance can undo this," he said softly, each word deliberate, steady, and unwavering. Emma shook her head, tears streaming freely. "But what if it does? What if I'm gone before we can truly be together?" He cupped her face gently, his thumb tracing her cheek. "Then I'll find you," he whispered. "No matter how far, no matter how long, I'll find you." And this time, nothing will stop us. That night, they walked through the snow-covered streets, hands intertwined, hearts beating in quiet harmony. The city was still, blanketed in white, each step leaving a trace of the journey they had traveled, through heartbreak, memory loss, rediscovery, and hope. Emma leaned her head against Ryan's shoulder, the warmth of his embrace countering the chill of winter. "I feel like this is right," she whispered. "Like we've been here all along, waiting for this moment." Ryan pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, his lips lingering, a silent promise. "Yes," he said. "This is right. And it will stay right forever. We will never be apart again." The following weeks were filled with preparation, planning, and quiet moments of love. They laughed, cried, remembered, and dreamed together, cherishing each second, knowing the future was uncertain but their bond unbreakable. Every morning, Ryan placed a white rose on the table, and every morning Emma smiled, recognizing not just the flower, but the devotion it represented. On the last day before her family's departure, they walked to the small park near the café. Snowflakes danced around them, soft and endless, and the city felt suspended in time. Emma looked at Ryan, eyes shimmering with tears and hope. "I'm scared," she whispered. He pulled her close, holding her as if shielding her from the world. "You have nothing to fear," he said. "Our love has survived everything. Distance, memory, loss. This is just another moment, and we will endure it together." They stood in silence for a long time, the world falling away around them. The snow piled higher, the wind whispered through the trees, and the city watched quietly. Then slowly she smiled. "Yes," she said. "Together." The day of departure came, but it was no longer filled with fear. It was filled with hope, faith, and the certainty that love, when true, finds a way. Ryan and Emma held each other tightly at the train station, the white rose pressed between them, a fragile symbol of enduring devotion. "I'll see you soon," Ryan whispered. Emma nodded, pressing her forehead against his. "Soon," she replied. And as the train pulled away, the snow swirling around them, Ryan's heart remained steady. No distance could break what had been found. No time could erase what had returned. Their love, patient and eternal, had survived the harshest winters of the heart. Months later, Emma returned as promised, and the moment they reunited, it was as if no time had passed. The white rose was still there, waiting, and this time it was theirs forever. They walked together through the snow, hand in hand, hearts full, knowing that the world could try to separate them, but love would always prevail. That night, as they sat together, snow falling softly outside the window, Ryan whispered, "We made it. We're finally together." Emma smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Forever," she whispered. And in the silence, in the gentle whisper of winter, the city and the falling snow, their hearts beat as one, eternal, unwavering, and infinitely patient. Love had returned. Love had survived. And now, love would endure forever in the snow.